I completely understand that we're not going to get rid of money overnight, but the journey of a lifetime starts with a single step. If we put forth some of the ideas I mentioned in reference to the educational process, such as teaching people how to garden, how to raise chickens, who help great with bug problems, by the way, or other livestock in order to feed themselves, in conjunction with the infrastructure plan I'm about to outline, we'll be headed in a better direction. What if I told you that our houses could be tornado and hurricane proof? They could also be lightning, fire, hail, and flood proof. What if I told you it would cost less and help the environment tremendously at the same time? Building houses that were partially underground has all of these benefits plus more. Here is what I mean when I say partially underground. I mean building the foundation above the floodplain and bury all but the front of the house, creating a large mound rather than a hole as discussed in so many prepper type situations. Using steel reinforced concrete for all of the walls, floors, and ceiling, and then burying all but the front would eliminate a huge number of problems we currently face. Here is a list of immediate and obvious positive outcomes of said construction practices. 1. Using concrete walls and burying each structure would be so energy efficient that heating and cooling would almost be negligible without any insulation. The average temperature underground is 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Even in the heat of summer or the dead of winter, your energy usage would be low enough to use nothing more than solar panels for heating and cooling. In conjunction with LED lights, the carbon footprint of each structure would drop to almost zero. 2. Using unbreakable window materials and a front facade of brick or stone would make each home almost impenetrable to Mother Nature. Tornadoes, hurricanes, hail, lightning, wildfires, storms, etc. would pass right through neighborhoods with minimal to no damage at all. If the foundation was built up and the home buried using dirt from the outer edges of the property, you would also create huge amounts of drainage to prevent flooding. Very similar to the inner waterways in southern Florida. I'm from Kansas, and this would be a huge benefit. 3. Using dirt as an exterior to the home would save huge amounts of natural resources. No wood to create the walls, no insulation, no siding, no roofing materials, no plywood or OSB. Every time there is a hailstorm in Kansas, siding, windows, roofing materials, guttering, and much more are destroyed. Tornadoes and flooding cause much more damage. These materials are then removed by the ton per each residence, carted to a landfill, landfills which are growing at an unprecedented rate, and then replaced. The amount of fossil fuels used to just create these new materials and ship them around the country is astonishing. This would be one of the most environmentally sound practices we could engage in, not to mention eliminating jobs that keep us spending our lives working rather than doing the things we would like. 4. Asphalt roofing and exposed concrete in the form of roadways and parking lots are huge contributors to atmospheric heating. Ask any roofer and they will tell you how much hotter it is on the roof than in the grass on any day. This is also evident in any parking lot when it's sunny. Asphalt roofing is exactly the same in respect to the amount of atmospheric heat reflection and retention as a parking lot, if not worse. Not only would we eliminate the materials needed, but this would decrease energy used to cool the home and reduce energy reflected back into the atmosphere, helping to reduce global warming. This is most likely a much larger contributor to global warming than CO2, but this plan remedies both just to make sure that we've got all of our bases covered. By the way, CO2 is the best thing for plant life, which convert carbon dioxide to oxygen. Dispensaries with grow operations all use this technique of injecting CO2 into the grow rooms to get better results when growing marijuana. If atmospheric CO2 levels were rising in a significant way, it should be evident in the local plant life prior to, or at least in conjunction with, increasing average temperatures globally. In other words, if CO2 was increasing in any significant manner, all flora of all kinds would love it and you would see it in the plant growth patterns. 5. The amount of money required per household on repairs and insurance would drop to almost nothing. In fact, every home would cost so much less to build and maintain than owning a home would be very affordable to most American families. This would also free up huge amounts of time for people to spend with their family in the form of needing to work fewer hours at a job or performing property maintenance at their own home. 6. Covering the house in dirt would also return much of the landscape to a natural and beautiful environment, helping all of the biome. Wildlife would no longer be pushed out of neighborhoods, and it would also provide a much larger area per household to grow food or keep livestock. 7. Not only could you eliminate the threat of things like drive-by shootings, you could also make it much more difficult for any foreign or domestic entity to invade and conquer our country. Every home would essentially become a fortified bunker in case of any emergency, natural or otherwise. This includes protection from re-entry of space junk or other small debris coming from outer space. With the amount of money and materials saved on the structure in this plan, it would be very affordable to outfit homes with bulletproof glass and an exterior facade if necessary. 8. Fossil fuels needed to get materials harvested, refined, and moved from point A to B to C and D, etc., would be reduced by an enormous amount. This was touched on but deserves its own mention separately. Just to get one 2x4 to market requires felling equipment on a massive scale, a truck to haul raw logs to the mill, a massive saw to cut the logs down into boards, a kiln or furnace to dry the wood quickly in order to satisfy the high demand market, another truck to move it to the desired retail or wholesale location, and yet another truck to move it to the construction site. That is if you are as efficient as you could possibly be in this process. It may take a ride on a container ship as well. You still then have to replant what you have harvested. It is ridiculous the amount of energy to get one stud grade pine piece of wood of the lowest quality to a construction site, all while removing the tree from the equation. A tree which could be used to be removing CO2 from the atmosphere and converting it to oxygen. You don't need to be a scientist to see how preposterous this is. Removing this practice would reduce traffic on the roadways, as well as reduce a huge amount of the fuel required for our country to operate. Growing food at home would also contribute to this reduction in fuel consumption in a huge way. In short, this plan would be extremely energy efficient on most levels. Protect from almost anything the Earth could throw at us, as well as many of the man-made threats. Reduce atmospheric heating on a massive scale. Provide for a much more area to be used for agriculture, return much of the environment to its natural state, reduce consumer costs on many levels, save people huge amount of time, reduce the workload on humanity, reduce the number of required building materials, and consequently the impact on the global environment. And it would protect us from physical threats, foreign and domestic. Using building practices that will truly withstand the test of time and Mother Nature is tantamount. Think about it like pulling Earth's blanket up over you. Everything we need to make our lives easy and wonderful is here if we just utilize it correctly.